Hello and welcome to Mile High Discussions. I'm Elle Estacio.
And my name is Hugh O'Brien. We're going to be your hosts for today's show. And today's show's topic is freedom of speech.
And with us we have two guests joining us, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves.
My name's Kaufman. I'm a sophomore at Denver East High School. I'm on our cross-country team and part of the Black Student Alliance. One of my hobbies is politics. I really enjoy that, studying that and following that.
I'm Quentin Yamazaki. I'm currently a senior at East High School as well. I'm in math club and ping pong club, and I enjoy photography and tennis.
Awesome. So what do you guys think is the extent of free speech at your school?
Well, Briar, you are part of BSA, correct?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of free speech at this school. I think our school gives us a lot of dictation on what we can do and what we can say. I think we have a powerful newspaper that has a lot of opportunities for students to voice their opinions. I think there's a lot of people who feel like their speech at this school isn't heard because it's such a large school and it can be hard to hear at our school, at East High School. But I think we do have a lot of speech, and I think I've never felt that like my speech has been compromised and that I couldn't do something or I couldn't say something. I felt that there's always been a place where I could say something at East High School.
Right. I think that's really involved in the communities too, because it's super nerdy, but math club in specific has always been a place where one of my favorite teachers teaches, Mr. Nagel, and it's not really a club where we have to, it's only about math, but it's a place where you can also go to just talk to people, and there's a lot of different communities within the East High School that we can go and have things like that available to us.
With that though being said, so we have a lot of freedom within our school programs and having this choice to be able to speak out about what we love, but if we want to go into a political stance type of outlook of our school, if we're going to back up and say, well, how does it look politically? Our school is East High School is a very liberal school, if you do want to look at it in that perspective. So if we want to go along this route, with freedom of speech, to what extent do we have politically to express like our different opinions that we form and our different ideas that we have that stray from this more liberal outlook? Do you think those students have more of a choice and have more of a way to speak their minds without getting that harsh like judgment or anything?
Well, I do know that we have both Republican and Democratic and other political party clubs. The Republican particularly, since it's not a very large body of students at East. I know that Colonel Pete, he leads those discussions, and to my understanding, you don't have to be a Republican to go to that club. You can still go there and have civilized educational discussions with each other about political topics.
In addition to that, I'm a pretty liberal guy, but I decided to go to the conservative, independent, libertarian, and Republican club. It was actually a really interesting experience because it's sometimes hard to find those opinions and talk to those people in the school. Like, you know, you often isolate yourself with people who are politically like-minded. So most of my discussions are with people who agree with me, but I think going to that club that day and talking with people who disagreed with me was a really powerful experience. And there was a lot of things I disagreed with them, but I also found that they did have, they do have valid points. And it can be easy to just say, they don't agree with me, I disagree with them, let's not talk, whatever they say is not true. But that's not how it is. And I think just going there and talking to people was really important. And I think it's something that everybody should try to do, is just to talk to somebody who's different.
Do you think the liberal bias of East might drown out other voices?
I think there is a lot of liberal bias at East, and I think it can be hard for those students to maybe express themselves to the entire school. But I do think that they are having conversations with each other, and that they are having conversations with people who are like-minded and who they want to have conversations with. But the next step going forward would be to have groups that are different to have a discussion with each other.
Right, and I know that this doesn't necessarily apply directly to me, but a lot of students, I know that they have, of course, their personal group meetings with each other, that they share the same political views, but to my understanding, there's not a lot of interaction between the two groups. Like, I know that it could make for a very interesting, at least, discussion if the Republican and the political, or like the libertarian group that you visited one day, I think it'd be really interesting to see them interact with each other. I think that'd be very enlightening on the East community in general. I'm not sure if it's happened before, but it's something I'd be interested in seeing.
But just in addition to that, when I was there, a lot of them expressed this sentiment that if they went to the other club, they would either get beaten up or shut out or not talked to, or like, isolated. And I thought, that was one of the things I maybe disagreed with the most, or found like the worst thing being said, that is like, well, we're not going to try because, people won't like our opinions as much. And I think even though it's maybe not popular, or, you still have your opinion and you should go talk to somebody about it. But I don't think if they had went to the other club, like, they would have beaten them up, like they was said, or anything.
Although with that, like, I have had conversations with people who do have those more conservative ideas, and a lot of the time they do express fear, because with our school in specifics, because I know there are other schools though that are the complete opposite side of the spectrum, but I mean, if we were to introduce that idea and introduce those two, I know that there would be conflicts, because there are very strong-minded individuals who will fight, to the bone on their side in their opinion. And so what ways can we, do you think, East in any way with our censorship policies and the way that we express ourselves and our opinions and we push them so forward? Like, do you think that's something that's even like acceptable, that we should even be considering censorship as something we like strongly like push on?
I know as a conservative, or more mid-range than many of my current my current peers, that I personally view our school's English program as actually quite liberal, and I think that might be part of the reason why many of our students don't have conservative views, because they're being taught multiple liberal ideologies, even though they might not be hammered into their daily lives. I still think it might have some effect on their political views.
I think it might, but I also think a lot of my political views and a lot of where my education politically came from was my parents. And one of my parents is a Republican, and one of my parents is a Democrat, and typically I lean more Democratic. But I think, I think there is definitely, I've noticed teachers, they say, I disagree with this. I don't think we should stop teachers from having a political opinion. I think teachers should have the right to say what they want to say, but I don't think teachers should be saying that their students are wrong.
Yeah.
I think they should have a discussion. The teacher should be part of the discussion if they want to discuss politics in the class or their opinions. And I think students should have the right to disagree with their teacher and talk, because that's important to have a disagreement when you want to talk about something political. But I think I definitely agree with you that there is a liberal bias in our school, and it can be hard for those who are like the more conservative students.
Right. Bringing this back to free speech, I understand that we're supposed to allow all students to hold their own political views, along with teachers as well, though. And I believe one of the East policies is that teachers aren't supposed to talk about their political views. This doesn't always remain true, because it's very, very prominent in our lives, especially with some issues we're having in Congress revolving around education, or that we had. I think that it would be helpful for us to talk about it, but it can also work if we don't necessarily include these in part of our education. Like, talking about politics doesn't need to be involved in or associated with the language arts room or math.
Do you guys feel that there's a need to teach students about civic engagement and voting, and should this be objective, or should teachers be allowed to share their views on this?
Well, I think that teachers shouldn't be allowed to force their own ideas onto students, but taking a civics class is a requirement to graduate from East. I think that should stay that way, because learning about the world that you're going into and how it works and how the voting process works and how our government works, I think that's very important.
And I 100% agree that civics and our political system needs to be taught in class. I mean, I was in English class and we had a discussion, should we lower the voting age from 18 to 16? And a lot of kids said we should, but I asked them, like, can you tell me who your state representatives are, or who your representatives in Congress or in the state house? And none of them had the answer. And for me, that's a really easy question because I follow those things. You know, I could name them all who represent me. But I think if we want to have an engaged community and a community that's responsible when they leave our high school, I think teaching them about our political system is extremely important. And I think it's hard to teach political systems when you like have a political opinion. And I think that's something teachers need to work on and learn how to do, is how to teach with teach their classroom and have their classroom and how they want to teach, while also not like removing kids who disagree with the teacher, because I know it can be hard to like speak up when your superior is telling you something you disagree with.
But then that brings to light, though, the idea of censorship. And so to what extent, then, are we saying that it's okay for students then to express their own idea, but then put that limit on teachers? Because I know that is what you're saying is correct. Like, we have so much of those teachers are against that idea of, like, look, you guys, like, don't talk about, like, they can't express their own political opinions. But then when it comes to us, like, should we even put that idea of censorship into something that we need to push so heavily? Because especially with like, if you're to look at a more conservative school, their ideas of what they push and what like even they teach in like language arts rooms, like they're going to vary so much differently from what we do and what we like push forward onto what we believe is morally right. And so it comes that issue of like, to us, what extent is censorship okay? Is it something that should be determined between that only the students should be censored in this way and that, or that only teachers can be censored in this way and that? Like, to what extent are we, first off, does our school have censorship, is your personal opinion? Like, to what extent do you think it is, and to what does it let in and block out? Like,
Right, so you asked like what I think or what we think our political censorship in our school is like, and there is censorship. I mean, as I said earlier, teachers aren't supposed to discuss their political views in class, but I don't think there's a perfect mix of how much censorship you give students and teachers in the room without having issues with freedom of speech. Because if you're telling a teacher that he or she can't speak about this, but then in the hallways they pass students that are having discussions about this, that's not correct. But I'm not sure if there is a correct proportion of student to teacher censorship that should be allowed, or if it should just be unified. But then you have the issue of whether or not teachers are teaching their students political views that they're not supposed to be imposing upon them.
And I think the most important thing is like, we can't block the teachers from discussing with their students, but we have to make sure the teachers know how to have a responsible discussion where they're not maybe overwhelming the students with their political ideas, so that teachers can be like politically and talk to their students, but like you have to have a line between, you know, the teacher just telling their students political opinions, or the teachers teaching the class and letting the students, you know, learn and have their own and develop their own political opinions.
I think a valuable requirement for that to like work properly or efficiently would be maybe a curriculum that involves all political discussion or parties and views, but then you'll have to enforce teachers to teach according to the curriculum in order for that to work properly.
Do you think that this potential curriculum that you're suggesting, is there a possibility that it could be influenced by state or city politics? And if so, how would we be able to protect against that?
Well, on that sort of scale, I'm not sure if it's not at all corruption-based. It's more just bias-based is what I'm trying to get at. And I don't know if you can entirely resolve that issue without looking higher up.
And I think just with that political bias and city and council elections, I mean, I think the city and council should, you know, find a way to educate our voters and have voters that know about these things.
and so with that, I mean, it is definitely something we do need to consider, and I think that's a huge question we have to propose to, all of our schools is, are we able to incorporate a curriculum like this? And so, thanks, and we'll be right back after the break.
I needed to do something.
HVAC, pharmacy technician.
I wanted to finish something.
Practical nursing.
Auto collision.
I wanted to be someone.
Welding.
Accounting.
I wanted to graduate debt-free.
Dental assisting.
Culinary arts.
Opportunity comes from possibility. Come see what's possible.
Hello. Hi. What are you waiting for? What are you afraid of? You jump right in. Shooting video. You have a camera in your hand more than a book. Learn from my dad. He won't waste your time. Learn video production. My dad would teach you. You can do this.
Hi, I'm John, and in 1 year, this will be my career.
Hi, I'm Vanessa, and this will be my career in 10 months.
Hi, my name is Jose. This is my career in this 37 weeks.
With nearly 30 certificate programs, you can go from classroom to career in less than a year.
Welcome back to Mile High Discussions. My name is Hugh O'Brien. I'm your host.
And I'm Elle Estacio, and we're joined today with
Quentin.
Ballard.
Great. Now, Ballard, I know that you are a part of student council, and do you think student council is able to accurately represent the voices of East High School?
I think we have a democratic and fair election process. It's a very diverse group of kids working to do cool projects for the school and bring new things and organize dances and spirit weeks and bike racks, which is something I've been working on. So I think that is a diverse group that represents a lot of the community. We have people from all sports, all classes in there.
And I mean, coming into that too, do you think you got a fair representation of everyone? Student council has kind of a limited power. Do you believe though that with that, students should be able to express their opinions and say what they want to see out of the school system, and that student council should have more power in giving that right to the students to allow them to choose?
I think student council does have power to do things for students, but there also has to be a communication between the students and the student council members. If you want something done, you have to come and talk to us, which is a lot of times doesn't happen. And so I think if students could come to student council more and come and say, hey, I think it'd be really cool if we could organize some type of week or a day in honor of something, an day of awareness for an issue. I think that could be really powerful, and we could work on that and do it with a group. But I think the first step you have to do is you have to come and talk to a student council member or somebody who's can organize that on student council. And this can tie back to everything political. Is if you want your representative in the Congress to do something, you have to tell them what you want, and you have to vote on those things. And I think the representation has made a lot of people who wanted to run and who are motivated to do things like that. So I mean that's one way it could not be very representative.
Right, but speaking from a student perspective, I have never really seen a student go up to any of the student council members. I'm not sure if you've been approached before, but I've never seen any of us, sorry, I'm not us, any of them.
Fair representation.
Yeah.
Right. I've never seen students go up or personally gone up to a student council member and said that we need something like this. If there were a system like that, I think it could definitely help.
I mean, there's no system blocking them for doing that.
Right.
So I think if they wanted to come talk to us,
But
they
like,
can.
I meant some sort of system like where we can maybe put, it could be as simple as like a suggestion box or something.
There's a bottle that
Well,
says
that's the
office.
other thing then too, is the student council have enough? Because a huge problem is that I don't know if we even have enough of a system in order to have like something that lets us voice our opinions. So like, do you see anything that allows us to go in and then express those thoughts we have and wants we want out of the school system?
I was also unaware that there was a suggestion box. And I think many of the
Like,
students.
oh.
So how do all of you guys think? How would you be able to sort of emphasize that there is a suggestion box? And I know that also I believe that I think it's sort of hard to approach student council. So how could we make it easier, and how could we make student council members more approachable?
Well, I think the easiest thing to do is just come talk to us. I mean, not going to bite your head off.
Right. Then there's also, I know one person in student council, but I've maybe talked to him. I've talked to him a lot before. But my point is, it doesn't always occur to us that that's available to us.
Yeah.
And we aren't necessarily always invited in to talk to. So I think maybe if we were given a time or opportunity, maybe like during lunch some day of the week, where all of student council was in a room or something, where we could go in and talk to them or make suggestions, do you think that would be viable?
I think that is a reform that student council could make, is a way to, I think we could work with the media team, take our newspaper and our Angels on Air to find ways for people to come and advertise that you can come and talk to us, and improvements or suggestions that you have. I think maybe getting 40 kids into a room during lunch is kind of hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of people value their lunchtime to go do things.
Right.
And then, you can also just come talk to us, or come talk to a kid, or go talk to T during any time. And we can usually, when somebody says something, if they feel like they've been discriminated against, or if they have an idea and somebody thinks, that'd be cool, I want to see that happen, they can come and talk to the entire group,
right,
and push it.
Going back though to our theme of having, freedom of speech, should we be so dependent though on having student council being the only group that really gets our voice communicated out? Do you even feel though that we, being not a part of student council, do you feel you have a say in what it is, more than just what students represent, but more of what things that you can learn, what you've put value into as a student who doesn't quote unquote get that voice?
Well, I think that, I'd agree that we aren't necessarily, we don't necessarily know what voice we have, and even if we do talk to student council, I'm not sure if we still would, unless you continue to follow up with that person, asking them what the progress is on that situation. I'm not sure exactly what you could do to resolve that, though.
I think one thing that we could do is create a town hall. I know you said you weren't a huge idea of it, but not like the building, but town hall meetings.
Yeah.
We have big enough rooms, such as the auditorium, where we could get student council up there, and once a month or once every 2 weeks, we could have a dedicated lunch hour for people to ask questions to student council and give suggestions.
Yeah, I think that's a program you can pursue, but you'd have to come and talk to us about, getting it in there. We don't hear these things often from you guys because you don't tell us when you want something. And so if you want a program, you have to come and talk about it to student council. So, if you want more talking to the members, you got to come tell the members that you want to talk to them more. And I think that's an important thing that needs to happen, is you have to tell us that you want to talk to us, because it can be hard to know what everybody in a school of 2,500 kids wants.
Right. Well, I'd like to bring this back to the fact that I don't think it's necessarily the student body's fault that they aren't able to talk to student council members. I know probably a lot of the freshmen coming in, and even as a senior, as I said, I only know one member of student council. I think a lot of the students don't know anybody that they can go talk to on student council, and I still believe that if we had somewhere where we could meet Like, if you want to go in during lunch, I think that if you have a reason that you need to talk to student council, I think it's worth missing one lunch for.
And I think student council should have more power and needs to have more power on, meeting with people and talking with people and getting things done. I mean, I think we can always be better and we can always do more for people in this school, and organizing more days and events and things to do. I think that's an important part of this.
Right.
But can we even put all the quote-unquote blame on just student council for the fact that we aren't interacting as much? Like, in general, too, back to just, like, our freedom of speech and our, like, amount of, the amount of power that we have in putting something more into the way that we'd like to see our school structured. Like, we shouldn't have that all just dependent on student council. And, like, are we able, though, is student council able to be a power through us in order for us to all, like, get this new step up, I guess, in the game? And, like...
Right. What I got from that is that you think it's a lot of responsibility for 40 members of student council
basically.
to be responsible for representing the entire student body of 2,500 plus kids.
Yeah.
I'd agree. It's not fair. I'm not sure exactly how that system works, but you being a part of student council,
talk to them.
Well, then can students, quote unquote, claim their power? Are we able to go in and be like, look, we're students too, we're the ones learning this, so are we able to assert that power and assert that want into our school district?
I think talking to student council is a really good place to start if you want something to change at East. But you also have to talk to people like our principal. And I mean, he seems like a really open guy. I've talked to him a few times. You can talk to, there's a lot of people you can talk to. You can talk to a teacher who wants to help you. If you're a teacher, you want to change something in the classroom or in the school, you can talk to a teacher who wants to work with that. And I think there's a lot of avenues of people you can talk to. You can go talk to the deans. But I think you have to talk to somebody and you have to make moves to go and talk to somebody.
Now, Elle suggested that student council is very large, but it still doesn't fully represent our entire student body. What if we have something such as student elections that would give everybody a voice?
There are
we
elections.
do have student elections.
How often?
Every year.
But those
Is that enough?
Is that enough? What about semesterly elections for deciding things that happen to students?
That gets to be a lot of work.
Thank you,
Well,
though.
yeah, thank you guys for coming. I think this was a really interesting conversation, and thank you everybody for watching. We're gonna close it off from now. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Mile High Discussions. And yeah, thank you very much. Have a good day.